We're going to shift now from a focus on the future of the system sciences to the future of the world. We have a second special symposium that will last from now until the coffee break on global issues in the new millennium. And this is sponsored by the Council on Global Issues of the City of Toronto. And what we will be doing is Helmut Burkhardt, who will be chairing this panel, will introduce each of the speakers for a very brief set of introductory remarks, because we have several of them, and then they will have a more extended discussion in a panel that will occur immediately afterward over in Oakham House, along with the other concurrent panels. So this is, in a sense, an introduction to a dialogue that will go on with this panel during the next few hours. Let me then introduce the chairperson of the panel, and he will introduce the other speakers. Helmut Burkhardt is adjunct professor of physics at Ryerson Polytechnic University here, and has been the local organizer for our World Congress. So he has been not only organizing this panel, but has been helping in many ways behind the scenes with the conference. He's, in addition to being a professor of physics here, he has a doctorate in the natural sciences from the University of Stuttgart in Germany. He's had appointments at Ryerson, the University of Quebec, the Center for Energy Research, and also the University of Stuttgart. He is currently also the president of Science for Peace in Canada and the founding president of the Council on Global Issues, which I'm sure you will learn more about during the course of the discussion by the participants in this. It's an internet-based international organization located in Toronto. He has organized numerous conferences in the past on the themes that will be the central focus of this panel, and has edited conference volumes and a number of other works related to this field. So he has a deep and abiding interest in the problems of the global future. Helmut.
This microphone?
Yes, you may. Put that on. Let me get this thing to work. There we go. That is interesting.
Is it?
Oh, no.
Is this microphone on? Can you hear me? No, it's not on.
Sorry, I'm going to try that.
Okay, that's better.
Good to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. Peter, I'd like to thank Peter for a kind introduction. I, for one, have quickly absorbed everything that Len has said. It was good that Mike followed Len, because there's a little bit more to the application side there, and I think this is what I'm going to focus on. Having all these ideas somewhere, I would like to apply them to real-world problems which are serious. And just briefly, let me add one or two tools that were not mentioned. The one tool, I think, a universal knowledge tool that tends to be forgotten is our common language. The mathematicians use it, the chemists use it, system scientists use it. So common language is a powerhouse of interdisciplinary knowledge, and I think it is important not to forget. Aristotle took most of his wisdom by observing what language is doing, and I think we should do that as well. The second tool I'd like to mention is common sense. I think we should not forget that end of things. So, Peter has mentioned the Council on Global Issues. I have put some brochures here on your way out. You can pick those up. We are aspiring to become the Canadian arm or Canadian extensions of the ISSS. And we are using system sciences to the issues that we're discussing, the global issues. So the topic that I would like to address with the symposium that we've put together is global issues at the dawn of the new millennium. The few words I will say by way of introduction, a classification of issues, for example. Then I pick one issue that I believe is very important, and that is the necessity for global governance in our time. And then there will be three other speakers in this symposium. One is Colin Soskolny, who has worked for the World Health Organization in Rome on his sabbatical and has put together a report that reads like someone in systems science has written it, but he is really new. He just learned about systems science through this connection here. And the second person that will present is Steve Kurtz, and I know Steve from hyperspace, from the internet, really, and there's some confluence of ideas there, and I invited him to participate in this. And the third speaker is David Wolfson, and he has been for years involved in the Toronto Future Society, and we'll say a bit more about the speakers when they come up. Now, to talk about global issues, my experience was in one of the little sister conferences that Peter has mentioned. We have here the Canadian division of ISSS. Every second year we have a conference, essentially a systems conference, but we call it something else sometimes, knowledge tools, sustainability problems and that sort of thing. But essentially the approach is a system science approach. And in one of these conferences, I realized that my wide-angle view of the world that I had developed as an expert in nuclear fusion research, I spread out and said, there are other things in physics, I have to bring them together, and which I did. And then I thought, now I have a wide-angle view of the world. And in one of these conferences, it turned out the issue of global problems came up, and I realized I was completely blind to that. I quickly did some research on global issues, and I came to the conclusion that the energy issue, which is very frequently used as a big thing, is a non-issue. We have plenty of energy. We just have to change the technology a bit, and then we use solar energy forever and ever, and plenty of it. So what I discovered, though, that 50 square meters of roof or walls or so will do the trick. Then I looked at food supply, and I was told by organic farmers, you need about 2,000 square meters of land to feed one person. And now I looked at the United Nations data about agricultural land available, and I divided the 6 billion into that amount, and I found there were 1,600 square meters, but we need 2,000. So that was a scary experience. And I plotted this versus time, the crossover land per person available, and what is needed, the 2,000. The crossover was 1980, and now we're down to 1,600 and falling steeply, and so we'll be having soon maybe 1,000 square meters per person. And in Bangladesh, I think they now have 700 square meters per person. And what can be done with that to feed the people? Of course, we need artificial fertilizer, and that destroys the land, and we have to irrigate, and that destroys the land. And we have, I think the Yellow River in China is one of many who doesn't reach the ocean anymore. Certain times of the year, they just empty it out, and there's no Yellow River winding into the ocean. So that was scary for me, and I thought we have to look at these global issues. And so this is what this is all about. As we enter the new millennium, I think there is a spell on humanity globally by the scientists of this world. Like in the Middle Ages, those who predicted grim futures, the witches and medicine men and so on, they were hanged. That's okay for them. But now, what are we going to do with these guys? What they tell us is not a good rosy picture of the world. So let me give you a few examples. Kenneth Boulding, really, if you want to have a system scientist, you should definitely look at Kenneth Boulding. And he says, we're acting like cowboys on a limitless open frontier when actually inhabit a living spaceship with limited life support systems. So that's Boulding's view of things. Then other scientists, they tell us that global warming is upon us, and these heavy storms, etc., what we experience, polar ice caps reducing and so on, very severe consequences. I was flabbergasted when I heard of that iceberg in the Antarctic that if it breaks off and falls in the ocean, it will rise the ocean levels by 6 meters. But then, goodbye Holland. So these are severe issues. Now, you may have heard the recent book of Maurice Strong, who has been one of those warning people around for a long time. With all his activities, he tries to draw the attention of the public to the problems that we're facing in the near future. There is another report out from the United Nations, the World Resources Report 2001, and what does it say? It says that it reveals that widespread decline in the world's ecosystem is upon us. So who is listening to these? I'm afraid the scientists do not get their message out. I was talking to my neighbor who is in the TV business, some news editor or whatnot, and I said, we're having a conference on sustainability. That was one of the smaller ones. And, he said, sustainability, that's not news. And that was it. He wasn't interested at all. So I don't think we're getting our message out. I have put together the internet is marvelous. You can get quite a few things from the internet. And I found actually a list of these warnings. A couple of years ago, there was 1,500 scientists that issued a warning to all of humanity that we must change our ways or else. And I don't think that's common knowledge, hasn't become common knowledge. And then on the internet I found about a dozen or two lists where the Ecology Society and the Geographical Society and all kinds of very reputable scientific bodies have issued warnings as to the dangers that are ahead if we don't change our course. So again, I don't think those warnings altogether have arrived. So let me then give you my view of these issues. I classify them into ecological ones. I'm not sure you see the colors there. The ecological issues, in different color, the social issues, and then the personal, individual issues, and the physical issues. So that is the four issues that I would like to briefly illustrate what is happening in those areas. First, the ecology. There's this famous formula, which I call a world formula almost. I is the impact, the ecological impact of humankind, and he says that's equal to the population, the world population. A is a factor. This is a multiplication sign, so it's a factor, population multiplied with the affluence factor, that is the disposable income per person. So when you multiply P and A, you have the world's gross world product, say. Okay, and you multiply that with the technology factor, which is the amount of environmental destruction that happens per technology that produces $1 worth of goods. And if you put this all together, you get the environmental impact. Simple and true. Now here is a recent questionnaire that was handed out to leading ecologists, some 30 of them of the world, and they were asked to list the issues that are the most important for us today. And many discussed technology, some discussed consumerism, affluence that seduces to overconsumption, and so on. And of the 30-odd ecologists, 2 mentioned on the side that there is a population problem. So I was stunned because, the ecologists of all people, they should know that this is a factor in the equation, and any one factor has the same contribution than any other. But unfortunately, I think the P factor is laden with taboos. And in, again, one of those smaller sister conferences, I had a working group of about 20, mostly engineers together, and said, there's a population problem. 2 or 3 of them said, no, there is no population problem in the world. And then the other 18, they expressed, yeah, sure, there is a population problem, but you can't say it. It's politically not correct to say, that overpopulation is a big issue, because the third world, the developing worlds, might take it, as pointing the finger to them. I don't want to do that, but I don't want, as a scientist, I don't want to lie. So I have to be open what I think is right, and I think this factor is an important factor, and so is every other one. So the affluence, we can, in the West, we can cut that in half, okay? The technology, okay, when Amory Lovins was talking about the factor 4, and that's only for electricity, they said, the guy is crazy. Now I understand in Europe, the industry, European Industry Association is talking about the factor 10. I think they are crazy, but at least this is in 10 years or so, this factor receives a lot of attention. This one, the West is accused of overconsumption, and that should get attention. All of them should get attention, and this definitely must be, receive attention as well. So this is the situation that I would like to characterize our ecological issues at the moment. It's population and consumerism and the inappropriate technology. So the social issues now, I think I can summarize that with two. One I see as necessary is the self-control of humankind. The enemies of humankind have been sort of kept in check. The big cats don't threaten us much, and the viruses and small enemies we do have, some are acting up, but medicine is okay, they're doing their job, and so we are not controlled through external forces. So my conclusion is it is a necessity that we're self-controlled by humankind. Otherwise, the population will explode the natural way, as the rabbits did in Australia when there was no external enemy. And the other option, I think if we don't solve this problem of self-control, well, there's another option of self-destruction by World War III or something like that. Okay, so we have two options. We can either do it in a civil way, or we can experience destruction, control, in an uncivilized way, as it has been done in the past. The law of the jungle rules between nations in a very brutal way, as we know. So I think those are the key social issues that we have to address. Now, for the population question, I have the advice to the individual who in the end is responsible. Procreate moderately, consume modestly, and use technology wisely. So that would be my recommendation, and that would be covered, I think, by the efforts of Maurice Strong and Mikhail Gorbachev, who have created foundations that work together in producing an Earth Charter. And it would be addressed to every human being, and I think these are the items they should have in it, and they do to a large degree. Then the physical threat, hardly worth mentioning, because the probability for some kind of meteorite hitting the Earth is very small, so we don't usually talk about that. But it is, of course, possible. It has happened in the past, and it can happen anytime. So if we use Len's futuristic view of the world, that we are going to be space travelers, then we go out there and, put them a few inches aside, and then they'll miss the Earth. And in the long distance, they travel from there on. So that's not much, first, what we can do about, and second, I don't think a big problem. But then there are the anthropogenic problems, and that is the total environmental destruction that we're facing. Okay, so that was my introduction to the issues as I see it. Now I'd like to pick one, that of self-control, the issue of self-control of humanity, the internal control of a species. I'm saying it cannot be done by competition, because, when two knights were fighting, that was, tragic for one, but in total, it was keeping the ecosystem in balance for millions of years. So that wasn't a tragedy, but the knights have flocked together, as we have heard about chaos theory. The the organization, the cooperation has benefits, and from Darwinism of the individuals, we now go to Darwinism of the tribes, and then Darwinism of the nations, and now of the blocks. And if the East and West bloc, that was Gorbachev's idea, if the Cold War was going to get hot, it would have been the end of the world. And he single-handedly averted that part, but I'm not sure it's gone, because so many nations now have nuclear weapons, and if a substantial number of them are discharged, they put, like volcanoes, they put ashes in the atmosphere, and with only a fraction of the numbers of nuclear weapons that are in humankind's control, it would have darken the sky for 3 years. In the nuclear winter, we would all starve, and our civilization would certainly be changed in an uncivilized way. So I'm saying the competitive option is not an option any longer. So the only option we have is self-organization and self-control. And so that's my reasoning that I'm saying global governance has become a necessity. Now, it doesn't mean that we need a big brother up there. The global governance can be organized in a way that is reasonable. And with systems thinking, we can put together a political system that works and that is fair to the best possible degree. And the possibility of social systems to change their internal structure is the reason I think that fundamental changes in the organizational structure of humankind are possible. And we'll have to go to the systems people and find the actual proposal in which way to reorganize so that the global governance becomes possible. We do have the United Nations already, but the United Nations is plagued by internal conflicts. One is that they have signed, at least 130 nations or so, have signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But on the other hand, the United Nations was founded by nations, and they in the Constitution say you cannot interfere in the internal affairs of a nation. So what is the UN going to do when a nation violates human rights? Their mandate is to prevent that, but the other mandate is to leave it alone. And that's what they did, for example, in many tragic cases recently that we had. So the United Nations needs to be reorganized. There has to be some kind of government which has a different constitution from what we have now. And I think we look to the Europeans. They have made a union which is sort of an intermediate level of governance. And it seems to work fairly well. If they discuss a lot, that's fine. But the other flaw I see in the United Nations Constitution is that there are 150 or so, whatever number of nations in there, and some are mice and some are elephants. So it doesn't give a good operational kind of an entity. So I think that's another reason why the UN won't be able to do the job of global governance the way it is organized now. So we are going to go into further detail on this matter. We're going to take a systemic view at global governance in the breakout session that follows the symposium, and I would like to invite you to join us there, which is in L375. I think the entrance is through the library. So thank you. That was what I had intended to present. I would now like to